Hey guys, it's Laura Whitmore here with STP, and if you are a last minute crammer and you just started studying for the August SAT, do me a favor and type cram in the comments below. I want to see how many of you guys out there are actually starting to study right now, because honestly, if it was me, I would have a heart attack. I don't know how you guys can do it. But in this video, I'm going to run through all my predictions for things I think are going to be on the August SAT. These are things that I review with my students in our sessions. And the reason why I think I know what's going to be on the August SAT is because I am constantly looking at all of the new tests that are released just to look for trends. I mean, that's part of my job as a test prep instructor. I look for trends in the data, trends in the questions, and then I pass it on to my students, and then they go in there and they score amazing. And I want you guys to score amazing too. So stick around. I'm going to give you a little bit of English tips, a lot of math tips. These tips work for both the paper test and the digital SAT. So happy to have you guys. All right, before we get started, this video is brought to you by Preply, the digital SAT prep app that you can access from your mobile device or your iPad. So prep anywhere you want, whenever you want. You don't have to sit down and take a full test every time, guys, to prep for, the new digital SAT. So if you're running out of questions, because digital SAT questions are a hot commodity right now, they're tough to find, definitely download Preply today and get prepping. We have some really awesome updates coming soon as well, top secret, but I will let you know as soon as they happen. All right, guys, so the first prediction I have for you is actually for the reading section on the paper test. This deals with the Hug Slug. For those of you that don't know, the Hug Slug are the two passages that go back to back. Sometimes the Hug Slug is a historical, like an old one written in 1800 something. Sometimes the Hug Slug is a science passage. It really just depends. So what I did was I analyzed past tests, looked at the patterns, and according to the pattern of what they've made the Hug Slug recently, I think that the next Hug Slug is going to be a science. March was an old historical, May was a science, August was an old historical. It's time for another science. So if you really like reading the science passages, this is going to be an awesome scenario for you. You're going to have two science passages on this test, and one is going to be the Hug Slug. If you don't like reading science passages, then I would suggest you get going and practice as many science passages as you can and find as many science Hug Slug passages as you can. So start with the May 2023 SAT, since that has a science Hug Slug. You can actually access the May 2023 SAT from my website, so I will link it below for you. All right, so the first prediction that I have, aside from that reading one, for all of you guys taking this test, whether you're international or you're in the States, is I think that this round, they're gonna test you on past perfect and present perfect tenses. I have noticed a trend, especially a shift in the digital SAT, where they're starting to have a lead into the sentence that really kind of emphasizes what time period and time frame is going on. So let me just run through with an example right here what I'm talking about. If it's like basically stating something that happened that was ongoing in the past, like during his travels in 1903, that means it happened over a long period of time. His travels was an ongoing thing, but it was only in 1903, so it's done now. You're gonna use a past perfect tense, like he had been, da 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 da. So that's called past perfect. Okay. If you hear them start a sentence that sounds like it was in the past, but still ongoing in the present. So like she was a little girl means it was in the past, because when she was a little girl, that was in the past, but it's still happening. It's ongoing in the present. Because it says since she was a little girl, meaning she's still like this today. So you would say she has been da 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 present perfect. Just be ready for that. Obviously, if they say something like in the future, pick future tense. She will. If they say today, pick present tense, she is. But I really want you guys to be ready for something like that because they're starting to fold that in. My second prediction is they're gonna test you on picking a conjunction or a fanboys. For those of you that don't remember, fanboys are, you know, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. Oh my gosh, I hope I got that right. So you are going to pick a conjunction and not a transition if you have a comma. And there are two complete sentences if you end up picking the transition. Let me kind of tell you what I mean by that. I could say a full sentence like he sat down. That's a complete sentence. If I put a transition word in front of it, like if I say, however, he sat down, it's still a complete sentence. When you are checking, like here they give you a conjunction and then they give you like a bunch of options including a transition word, but you have a comma right here. If you read both parts, like this is a complete sentence and then this part is also a complete sentence, a comma cannot separate two complete sentences. If you pick the nevertheless, it will keep that second sentence as a complete sentence, so the comma rule will fail. So don't pick a transition, make sure you pick a conjunction, and in this case, since there's a contrast, you need to pick the but. All right, my third prediction is you're going to have to know how to interpret an exponential function. So let's say you have this as your function. Just understanding the parts of it. Okay, that is the starting amount or the initial amount. They also call it the principal. Your rate is in here, so your rate is 3.5%. Since the number inside the parentheses is greater than 1, it means 3.5% was added to 100%. So this is a growth function. It's going up. And then this is your time, and it's in years. Okay, be ready for some nuances. If they say every, and let me change that to a T real quick, because here are some like tricky scenarios that you could run into. If they say every 200 years, well then you have to divide the T by 200. So make sure you pick an answer where 200's in the denominator. If they say each year for and they say a number of years. Well, if it's happening each year, it doesn't matter how many years are going by, it's just a T. So don't do anything to the exponent, okay? Now, if the number is less than 1 in the parentheses, let's say your number is 0.87 in here instead, that is a decay, and your decay rate is 13% because you're losing 13%, okay? What remains is 87%. So don't pick a rate that says 87%. Your rate is 13%. It's going down 13%. Okay, my fourth prediction deals with, you know, tough quadratic equation scenarios. So we're talking like the last couple of problems on section 3 or the danger zone, which is like number 20 to number 30 on section 4. They're gonna ask you one of 3 things on your test, so be ready for all of them. So if they, like, let me give you a quadratic too, just to, so you have an example. So let's say we had 2x squared minus 6x plus 10. If they ask you for the sum of the solutions, you're gonna use negative b over a. So it'll be a negative 6 over 2, which is 3. If they wanna know how many real solutions it has, real solutions, that's your key word. So like your spidey sense should be triggered when you hear real solutions, and I want you guys to think about the discriminant. So you're gonna use b squared minus 4ac. Now, just as a recap, if your discriminant is positive, you have 2 real solutions. If your discriminant is negative, you have no real solutions. And if it's 0, you have 1. This is because it's under the square root of the quadratic formula, and you can't take the square root of a negative number. It would be imaginary. That's why there's no real solutions when it's negative. So if we go ahead and we put in our values from that equation that I made up, we end up with a 36 minus 4 times 2 is 80 times 10, so that'd be minus 80. That's going to get us a negative number, so the answer would be 0. There's 0 real solutions. Okay, your third scenario is going to be them just asking you for one solution or something of that nature where they want you to provide them with one answer. Now, the quadratic will not be easily factorable, so you'll have to use the quadratic formula. So make sure you know the quadratic formula. It is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I hope you don't get option C. I feel like that's the most annoying one to do. But sometimes they'll give you a problem where they give you most of the quadratic formula. You might just have to divide by 2. They left that off, and then it's wicked easy and it takes 2 seconds. My fifth prediction for what's going to be on the August test, they're going to ask you about axis of symmetry. So you need to understand the axis of symmetry is actually calculated with negative b over 2a, which is a little different than getting the sum of the solutions. It's the x coordinate of the vertex. So like, let's just say, you know, here's our parabola and our vertex is here at negative 2, 5. That's right in the middle. So it's going to be in the middle of the two solutions. So if there's a solution at negative 3 or negative 7/3, that's negative 1/3 to the left, or 1/3 in the direction of the left. So to get the other one, you go the same distance to the right and you'll be at negative 5/3. So that's how you would get that. Just know that the x coordinate of the vertex is the axis of symmetry, aka the midpoint between the two solutions. Margin of error is also something that you're gonna get tested on this round, I think. This is my sixth prediction, you guys. All you need to know for margin of error is that if you wanna decrease margin of error, you have to increase the sample size. You're gonna have a big chunky word problem for that. Just make sure you pick an answer that talks about making the sample size bigger and you're good to go. Circle equations, you have to know how to interpret circle equations. This is my seventh prediction of what's gonna be on the August test. So let me just go ahead and quickly run through how you would do that. Now, to be able to get the center, you guys, you just change the signs of the numbers inside the parentheses. So the center is at 3, negative 4. This is r squared, so that means your radius is actually at 4. But here's the thing that they're gonna do if it's a harder problem. They will give you a point on the circle, you'll know the center, and then they'll tell you another point on the circle, and you have to use the distance formula, which is the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared to get the length of the radius, so then you can figure out what the equation is. Now, when you get the radius, be careful. Like, let's say we get that the distance between them is the square root of 5. That's the radius, but in your circle equation, it's equal to the radius squared. So your circle equation will be equal to 5, not square root of 5. So just watch for that. Okay, vertex form. You need to be able to interpret vertex form. So let me give you an example for that. In vertex form, just running through, it's for a quadratic and it tells you the coordinates of the vertex. The vertex is at, in this example, negative 3, negative 7. You change the sign of the number inside the parentheses. You keep the other one on the outside the same. This is your A value, which flips the parabola down because it's negative and makes it narrower because it's 10. That's not going to impact your vertex, just a heads up. They might give you a word problem that talks about like a plane going up into the air. So just make sure that you have your height be the Y and then the time is the X. Remember, guys, Y is up and down. So if they talk about altitude or anything, when they talk about the maximum, you want the height to be the Y coordinate, okay, not the X coordinate. My ninth prediction deals with exponent rules. I've been seeing them do some sneaky things with exponents lately. Let me just highlight with an example. They might want you to do something like this, where they have like x to the 1/2 times x to the 2/3 to the 1/2. You just have to know how to employ PEMDAS here. Multiply first, then add. So when you raise a power to a power, make sure that you multiply those two exponents together. So let's go ahead and simplify what we have on the next line. So I would have an x to the 1/2 still, times, well, 2 times 1 is 2, 3 times 2 is 6, so it'd be x to the 2/6, which really is x to the 1/3. And then I'm gonna add, because now I have like bases, so 1/2 and 1/3. Well, 1/2 is basically 3/6, 1/3 is 2/6, so I have x to the 5/6. They might have you rewrite it in radical form though, so just remember the 5 is the power and the 6 is the root, and that's probably how they're gonna want you to put in your answer. My 10th prediction for what's gonna be on the August SAT is they're gonna try to trick you with a ratio problem. So if they talk about a ratio of 5 to 6, and I don't know, it could be anything. It could be 5 bananas to 6 apples. When you go to find out how many bananas there are in the total amount, you're gonna set up your ratio putting it 5/11. Because remember guys, if there's 5 parts of one thing and 6 parts of another thing, there's 11 total parts, okay? So then you'll set up the rest of your ratio. Let's say you're finding bananas and they say that the total amount of fruit is 2,000. You're good to go. Go ahead and solve. Thank you so much if you watched it all the way to the end. If you watched all the way to the end, go ahead and comment below perfect score, because you guys are perfect scores in my heart, and I really hope you get a perfect score on this test coming up. So happy prepping, study hard, and I'll see you guys again soon.